First of all, I'm Breen. Thank you guys. This is an honor. And so my company is Boulder Consulting. The umbrella company is called the Boulder Project, but Boulder Consulting is the company that does the leadership and sales training and coaching. Now, a lot of people have been to sales training, sales leadership. I've been to more to sales coachings, sales trainings than I can count. And for that reason, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I think typically, you see these whiteboards, and typically, you'll see people, drawing out, this is where the funnel should be, and then it should go over here, and then you've got the telephone, and this is where we're going to close the call, we're going to close the deal, always be closing. And you see trainings like this over and over again, a certain number of steps, how to close the deal. We're going to scientifically show you how to take salespeople who don't know what to do, and we're gonna teach them the process. We're gonna teach them every objection, how to overcome every objection. And I've been through so many sales trainings, and I've had success across such a variety of industries. And where those experiences have intersected, I feel like I've learned something, and this is what is at the core of why I call it Boulder, or being Boulder, or the Boulder Project. Because at the core of it, I believe that there's something more profound that drives great salespeople, and there's something more profound that's at the core of not even just teaching great sales, but I would actually say it's unleashing great salespeople and really kind of giving them permission to be great. So I'm going to sort of start with a what if scenario, and I'm going to come back to it. So we're going to end with the great sort of what if. And here's what I want you to think. Imagine you're at home, it's the end of the day, and you've had a long day of work, and you come home and you're sitting down, and you probably don't have water. You probably have something a little bit more unique and interesting. But you're sitting down and you have the football game on or whatever you have on, and the phone rings. And I want you to take yourself there. Okay? So you're there. You're relaxed. You've set the weight of the day down. You're with your spouse or your girlfriend or your kids. And you're just sitting on the couch. You're just relaxing. And the phone rings. And for a moment, just even if you want, close your eyes. I really want you to be there. I want you to imagine, how do you feel? As you see, now we have technology where it'll say on the TV screen, it's AT&T, or it's a salesperson calling. And we're going to come back to this. But this is really, really key and core to where I believe there is a foundational problem. And when we can overcome this, we can unleash bolder salespeople, people who can sell intuitively. So I want you to remember how you feel when you're there with your family, when you're there with your loved ones, and that phone rings and you pick it up. Or maybe you don't even pick it up because but you pick it up. And in that moment, it's a salesperson. And I want you to really get in touch with, how do you feel in that moment? And we'll come back to that. So, as opposed to, like I said, I was going to do something different. I thought about this awesome opportunity. And I think a lot of what we do in life, I think there's innately part of what makes us great human beings is that we're great storytellers. In a lot of ways, to describe me, I would say I'm a story seeker. Like, one of my goals is that when I'm a grandpa, God willing, when I'm a grandpa, I imagine my grandkids just sitting at my feet, being like, Grandpa, tell us another one. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Big Fish. If you haven't, check it out. It's about a father and a son, and the father was a salesperson, and the son has this idea that a lot of his stories they weren't true. He's not sure, but it's really about storytelling, and it's about the journey of life and adventure and getting in touch with your story. And so what I want to do is I want to share a story with you. And this story is foundational to how I sell. It's foundational to what I believe, and it's foundational to the core philosophy of the Boulder, of Boulder Consulting and the Boulder Project at large. And a key part before I dive into this, the reason I say there's the Boulder Project is because underneath the Boulder Project, there's Boulder Consulting, which is really unleashing salespeople to sell Boulder. But there's also the Boulder Academy, which is high school and college kids, which is it's my passion project. It's my mission on earth, and it is to equip young people with the strategy and clarity which to navigate their lives confidently. And to really whittle that down, it's to teach them to make decisions, teach them to use specific tools and strategy to understand how to network, how to ask themselves the right questions, and how to navigate their lives forward. So we're not going to talk about that today, but that's just underneath the Boulder Project. So anyways, here's my story. So if you would have asked me when I was 20 years old, 21 years old, and I was in college, and at the time I was at University of Utah, if you would have asked me, as many people did, what is it that you want to do in your life? Do you want to be in business? If you would have asked me that question, not only would I have said no, I would have said unequivocally no. I would have made a face. I would have maybe made a sound. No. I'm gonna be a firefighter. I'm gonna save lives. I'm gonna do something noble. My job every day is going to be to reach people who need help, and I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna serve others, and I feel that. I feel that in my gut and in my heart. There's no question. Don't ask me if I want to be in sales or in business. And ironically enough, of course, a year and a half later, so I've moved back to Chicago. I've met the woman who I'm going to marry. And I now have an apartment, and I have things that I'm having trouble paying for. And the dream isn't working out. First of all, I decided against becoming a firefighter for a specific number of reasons. And I love firefighting. I have it in my blood. My grandfather, my godfather were firefighters. But at the end of the day, I made a decision that my reasons for wanting to become a firefighter, look, I wanted to drive in the truck. I wanted to go down the street. I wanted people to cheer. I wanted them to see a hero. I wanted to wear the badge. But I also think that there was a question that was calling to me. And thank God I had my ears open and I was listening. And it kind of goes back to the what if. And it was just this simple question of like, sure, you could be a firefighter, but what if there's more? What if there's something else you're supposed to do? And what if you have to go down this sort of unknown, dark road, and you have to learn something about you, and maybe this whole idea of you serving others and helping others, it's not as simple as you just picking something that already exists out there. What if the career is you? What if it isn't one of the things, one of the choices, one of the options? So I did not become a firefighter. And then I found myself in sales. And the reason I found myself in sales was I had worked a number of jobs I didn't like. I was now 23, 24 years old. And I remember this vividly. I want to take you there. I take this job. It's a cold call, telemarketing, finance job. I come into the office. Every day, my job is to sit down in front of this computer screen, and there isn't even Windows. It's DOS. And I sit at the computer screen, and phone numbers pop up. My job is to dial those numbers, cold call people, and get them to give me personal information so that I can see if I can save them money. And at that time, it was mortgages, so I could save them money. Okay, and I think it's important. It's not an important detail to the story, but it's important that it's because it's important to me that everything I ever did at this job helped people. I don't have anything against any industry, but I wasn't selling people penny stocks. There was no Wolf of Wall Street. I was saving people tens of thousands of dollars. But when you call somebody in the middle of an afternoon on a Thursday, they're not expecting your call. They don't know who you are. And you want what information? No. Who are you? Why would I give you this? So I'm not a week into this job. And something happened to me that to this day was one of the most profound things that's ever happened to me. And I started noticing that I was feeling sick every day. And the sickness, this feeling, got worse and worse, and it built up and to the point where I couldn't speak. In the morning, I couldn't even talk. I was so nauseous. And so I didn't know what was going on. I found myself going down to the bathroom, just down the hall from the office that I worked in. And I would have to literally, and I apologize, I will try to be not graphic here, but I had to force myself to get sick. And this became my daily morning habit as I entered the workspace. So I would get to work. I would have my sheet, my mission sheet that I would write the day before. I would know who I had to call, what applications I had to fill out, what did I have to do. And I could feel that nausea building up and building up. And I knew there was no way I could get on the phone. There's no way I could do this. I couldn't even speak. If I tried to utter a word, I would become nauseous. And so I would go down to the bathroom, and it became my daily habit. And I actually did go to the doctor to make sure that I wasn't, that I didn't have something really wrong going on. And they said, no, this is not a physical problem. And so it turns out it was something I was having a problem stomaching. And so I will come back to that in a minute. So now, just in order to do my job, I have to make myself throw up in the bathroom before I come down, put on the suit of a salesperson, and start dialing these cold call numbers. And I'm doing it for a month. I'm doing it for 45 days, and I'm failing. And I'm now at a crossroads. I'm getting sick every day. I'm not making money at this job. The only reason I took this job is because there was like a $2,200 base salary. And there's a guy at the back of the office who had a sign on his desk, and it was a sheet of paper. It was just a printout, just a blank sheet of paper with a number on it, and it said $14,000. And so I asked my manager, I said, what does that number mean? Why does he have that there? And he said, that's how much money he made last month. I said, okay, you're kidding me. Can I sit next to him? Can I sit next to him and learn what he does? He said, sure. So I sat next to him. I sat next to him for the whole day. And at the end of the day, I was baffled. I was absolutely baffled. I didn't hear anything. I didn't learn anything, I felt. I learned nothing. Where's that opening line? Where's that moment he closes? Where is him going through objections and just, one after another, crushing objections? Where was that? I learned nothing. So I go back to my desk, frustrated. I don't understand. So then I say, okay, give me the names of the 5 top people in the whole company. I want the 5 people who they're talking about in the newsletter, the people who are making $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. Can I please talk to them? So back then, and this is a prop, this is for glasses, but back then they had these little mini cassette recorders. So I had a little mini cassette recorder, and I held my phone, I called, and I held the cassette recorder like this, and I called those 5 people. And at the end, this is going to sound like this is one of these cliche things, but at the end of those 5 calls, I was a different human being. I had just spoke to 5 people. And what I learned in that moment, and I learned it early on, and it took me years to continue going back to that moment to kind of dig deeper and learn more from it. But looking back, what I ultimately learned in that moment was that there's not a proprietary approach. There's not a 7-step system. I can't teach you enough ways to overcome objections, to turn a no into a yes, to set up a close. It's not about a scientific, can't lose approach to sell. In fact, doing it that way is what has prepared and taught all of our clients to pick up a sword and a shield every time they hear from us. because we go in so prepared to see through them and to close the deal. So what I heard in those 5 calls, I met 5 people who had empathy, integrity. I enjoyed talking to them. The more I pressed them for like, yeah, but what do you say? What's the opening? You know, what's the special thing you say? How do you close the deal? How do you overcome objections? It was as if I was speaking another language. They couldn't understand what I was asking, and we had a good laugh. And I remember the last call. I don't remember his name. I remember he was from Boston. But I remember him kind of laughing and saying, like he was breathing a sigh of relief with me. And he said, Brian, no, I don't do any of that stuff. Yes, I make $300,000 a year. What I do is I care about my clients. That's all. I explain to them the best of my ability what their options are. I guide them through the decision-making process. I hold their hand. And I let them own the process. And I'm probably saying that better now than I would have said it back then. I'm explaining it better now because I've learned a lot more. But I got off those 5 calls, and I would pick up so now every morning I would pick up my tape recorder. And by the way, every morning I'm still going down to the bathroom. I'm still getting sick. That has not gone away. And that did not go away for almost 6 to 8 months. It has gone away since, but it did not go away for a long time. It was pretty profound. So every morning I would now start my day by listening to my little tape recorder. That's my prop just fell. I would listen to those 5 calls, and I would just sort of free myself. And I would just go in and I would just dare myself to be as bold as possible. Back before I ever had any idea of, creating the Boulder Consulting, I would be as bold as possible in the face of every no, in the face of every person who didn't want to help me or didn't want to talk to me, in the face of, one woman even, I remember she laughed and said, no thanks, I'm not interested at all. And I said, no, look, I understand I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you so that we can see, might I be able to help you? But I just need a little bit of information. And she said, no, I'm not interested in. And we were kind of going back and forth, and I said, look, I don't want to waste your time. And in the moment, I had an idea, and again, I was like, be bold. And I asked her, I said, do you like Coke or Pepsi? She laughed, and she said, that's an odd question. And I said, look, I just want the opportunity to help you, which means I want the opportunity to show you, is there a way we can improve your situation? I'm not going to tell you whether or not to do it. I just want the opportunity. I said, if you'll give me that, I said, no matter what, I'll buy you the Coke or the Pepsi. And she laughed and she said, I've never heard anybody do that. Sure, that's fine. And long story short is I could help her. I did close the deal. I saved her a ton of money, and I did bring a Pepsi to the closing just as an endearing gift to say, hey, remember how this relationship started. So anyways, long story short, from that moment that I had that call with those 5 people, a month and a half later, I was one of those top 5 people in the whole country. I don't remember exactly the amount of money that I made that month, but it was even more than the gentleman in my office who I'd seen a piece of paper. And that's not important. It was more money than I'd ever seen. It was shocking. And from there, another question started. And that question was, okay, do you want to now you've done this, you've made this money, do you want to continue to do this? Because now you can make this wheel. Or do you want to answer this other question that's starting to pop up? And this other question is, Brian, you thought sales was this. You thought it so profoundly that you now know this is the reason why you were getting sick every day. This is the reason. Because you couldn't stomach what you thought you were waking up to do every day. You thought that you were going into work every day to sell people, to convince people, to call people, to make people uncomfortable, to turn a no into a yes. You know what I mean? To make money for yourself and to not, this is what I imagined sales was. And sitting at a closing table, and I'll never forget this one closing table. I wish I could remember their name, but I remember them weeping and hugging me and me crying and thinking, How is this possible? Sorry, my computer screen just stopped there. And I remember thinking, how is this possible? How is this possible? I believed sales was this thing over here. And it turns out here I am sitting at a dining room table with my clients. They have tears in their eyes and they're so thankful that I made a phone call and that I hung in there with them in spite of the fact that they didn't know who I was. They didn't trust me in the beginning, and they allowed me to build trust, but I had to do it boldly. There was no scientific approach that was gonna get me that feeling and that emotion and that reward at the end, that fulfillment. So basically what had happened, and I mean, I'm going to continue talking, but at the core, what I discovered was that everything I believed about sales was a myth. Everything that I was taught about sales was a myth. I was consumed and drowned by this mythology that sales, the purpose of sales, is to get people to say yes, to make the money, close the deal, that was what the purpose was. And suddenly I was enlightened because I got to experience client after client after client whose life truly changed for the better. Suddenly, this young man inside me who had wanted to become a firefighter, who had wanted to serve others, who had wanted to save lives, make an impact. Holy cow, I can do this here. What if this is what sales is? And all these things that I was taught, like how to overcome their objections. Why am I trying to overcome someone's heartfelt objections for my own benefit? Why aren't I instead listening? Why aren't I instead of trying to turn a no into a yes? I realized my job to turn a no to open up some space so a no, a scared no, a fearful no can become a profoundly educated no or a profoundly educated yes. But either way, when I walk away from that experience, they just had an experience with an individual who was caring, compassionate, profoundly educated, believed profoundly in what they did. And now when they say no with full clarity. I did my job. They will send me referrals. I'll make enough money. But the cool thing is when I lay my head down on my bed at night, that I know as a human being that I'm fulfilled, because it doesn't matter product or service. What matters is that I take my job seriously and I have the opportunity to truly impact lives. So I'm gonna show you guys something here. So we're gonna take not a break, but I'm gonna show you something that is a part of me. And it's a part of how I've developed as a salesperson and as a human being. And I'm gonna set it up here for you. But before I go into that, I'm just gonna say, so that sales experience was 2004. Okay. So in 2005, 2006, I continued down that path. I continued learning with the number one goal, and this is where I am today, but the number one goal and obsession was not how can I take one thing, one repetitive thing, make as much money as possible at it. My goal was now to keep going down the rabbit hole of how did Brian Breen, who was an English Lit major in college, English Lit, would have scoffed at the idea of being in business and wanted to be a firefighter because in his heart, he just wanted to serve others. How did that person end up in sales, was so disgusted by this that I ended up having a psychosomatic disorder where I was nauseous every day. And then I overcame that. I continued down the path and I discovered sales is that there is a beauty and an opportunity within sales that is largely hidden behind a huge, thick monstrosity of a mythology.
And what if there's all these salespeople out there? And even to go beyond that, there's all these people out there who would love to have a positive impact on people. And either they're in sales now, but it's the mythology preventing them from being successful every day. Or they're not in sales. They would never consider sales because they believe that sales was what I believed it was. And so my goal, my obsession is to reach as many salespeople, as many young people, and as many leaders that are coaching salespeople, and to help them demystify, redefine, and teach them to love what they do. So with that, I'm going to try to play something here for you guys. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I just want to set this up. So in 2005, shortly after this initial sales experience occurred, I started getting into triathlon, into the sport of triathlon, and I had always wanted to challenge myself. So I did a few triathlons, a few small ones in 2005, and then I sat down and I watched the Ironman. The Ironman comes on every year in like November. And so I watched the Ironman on TV and I recorded it. And when it was over, again, this is one of those moments that was just, I'll never forget that. It was life-changing because what I had just watched was a 34-year-old teacher named John Blaze who was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease. And I sat there and watched the first man ever with Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a muscle wasting, atrophying disease, which has a death sentence. There's no cure for it. He's 34, and mind you, he's a teacher. So he's somebody that is serving and giving back. I sit there and I watch him on TV, and he's dying. And he does this race. And I mean, I probably went through a box of Kleenex watching this. It was incredible. And I would watch it week in, week out. So come January, February, I'm starting to think like, you know, I'm going to do a few triathlons this summer. And a friend of mine who was helping to coach me said, if you ever want to do Ironman, you have to apply. You have to apply soon, early and often. So I apply and I write down, they ask you, what would you do with this if you got in? And they only give out 50 slots in all of the United States. Just 50. So I walk into my boss's office at the time and I said, hey, I just applied for the Ironman, like the hardest one-day endurance event in the whole world. And I said, they're going to call me. And he looked up at me. He goes, you're gosh darn right they are. And it was this weird, you know, electric moment. And I went back to my desk and I forgot about it for about a month until I got an email. And I saw the subject and it said, aloha, welcome to the Ironman. And even now I still get the butterflies and I open it and said, aloha, you have been selected to compete in the world's toughest single day endurance event. And I called my now wife, then girlfriend. I called her and I said, we're not going to tell anybody. I'm going to do this. I have 4 or 5 months at that time to go from a regular guy to an Ironman athlete who's going to go down to Hawaii, swim 2.5 miles, bike 112 miles, run a marathon, all in one day. In fact, not in one day, in 12 hours. So, I'm sorry, not 12 hours. They give you from 7 a.m. till midnight. And at midnight, there's a cutoff, and you are not considered a finisher. But here's this thing. So then I'm going to press play. But this is, again, core to my belief and what I believe about salespeople being in the service industry and really how to find fulfillment in this career and how to help your clients find fulfillment. That the greatest gift that you can ever get in your life, whether you're seeking clarity in life, you're seeking clarity for your direction, whether you're seeking clarity on a daily basis of how can you get more fulfillment. Oftentimes we look in the mirror and we look for the answers in the mirror. And what I'm going to tell you, and before you even watch this, is what I discovered is the answers are not there. That the answers are in you focusing on someone, anyone out there right now who needs help. And there was a moment after I realized that I had gotten into the Ironman. I was sitting there thinking, this is eerie. I feel like I have to do something with this. And I sat down for my weekly, I'm going to watch the 2005 Ironman. I'm going to watch John Blaze. And sitting there with tears in my eyes, I thought, this is it. This is why I watched it. And thank God for the internet. I found John and we became friends. And I sadly got to watch him begin to waste away. But I told him, I said, he didn't have a brother. And I said, look, I'm your brother now. I'm going to help you tell your story. And the reason I'm showing you this is because at the end of the day, what I believe is that sales is the transference, and maybe some other people have said it this way or better. Sales is the transference of belief. It's the transference of emotion. If you believe in what you're doing, nothing can stop you. If you believe in what you're doing, then your client is really, they don't need you to explain where every nut and bolt on the car went. What they need to do is they need to look at you, have utter conviction and trust in you, and believe in you, and they want to inherit your belief. They want to feel how you feel. So now that I've set that up, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and play this short video. And it's about 11 minutes.
And as you gaze out at the Hawaiian waters in front of you with your extended family, you know what happens out there will define who you are and what you're made of. It's an irresistible lure that brings you to this moment. You find yourself on the big island of Hawaii with 1,800 others, just minutes after dawn, almost silent. Maybe dreaming of images that beg the question, are you ready? Go! Competitor 179, John Blaze. Everything looks good for him, but it really does not. Essentially, John's been given a death sentence. A cruel disease has already rendered his hands almost useless, but his effort today is not.
It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still shout at the edges of a lake, river, or mountain, yes, I am a warrior poet. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after a night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done for someone you love. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and truly like the company you keep in the empty moments of your life, and still remember me, your friend, Blaze Man, the ALS warrior poet. People say, oh, what's the meaning of life? Well, the meaning of life is to live life. The meaning of life is life. I've lived a pretty full 34 years. And I've done stuff that most people never do in a lifetime. My version of the Blaze Man, he's just an underdog who's always had to overcome obstacles, and he's still doing it.
We always expected that there might be a phone call that John has had an accident, he's broken a leg, or God forbid, maybe even something worse. But we were never expecting to get a phone call from our son to tell us that, you know, I think I've got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. After his diagnosis, I said to him, John, you're coming home to live. not die.
My parents have been strong so far. I just think what's happening is a family's learning to deal with something they never thought they'd have to deal with.
If John was to ask you how he learned to tie his shoes, he would give you a story about my dad just got fed up, sat me down, and he said, we're gonna learn this, and we did. The first time in my life, on one of our training walks, I had to tie his shoes. And I said to him, John, you're making me appreciate all of the little things in life. And he didn't say anything, he just kind of cocked his head and said, yeah, I know, Dad. He started watching the Iron Man in high school, and I think in the back of his mind, he always knew that one of these days he would do an Iron Man, and it would probably be in Hawaii.
Why is it an important race to me? It just is. It's always been and it always will be, and I think when I'm sitting in a wheelchair, down the road I'll know that I have fought the great fight. I think oftentimes you find some of the greatest warriors who've been underdogs in their life. They learn to overcome obstacles. Everyone in life has a certain amount of their own adversity. I think that's what's the person that's inside you that makes you challenge yourself to push on to be a better individual. My body's not gonna tell me to stop, it's gonna stop. That's how it's gonna be. I'm gonna push through all the barriers until I physically can't cross the line. Or somebody says, you know, get this guy off the course. It's gonna be a long day. A lot of people getting me through the day. Past, present, and future, memories, thoughts, you know, there's gonna be a lot of people that I'll be taking with me on that ride.
I just gotta do it right.
If I had a wish, and it could be granted to me, it would be that at 7 o'clock in the morning, Hawaiian time, when John enters the water, that the world would scream, Jonathan, so that he could hear it.
Is this a self-fulfilling prophecy? This is God's plan. Am I been appointed this job? I think about that a lot. It is. I'm gonna continue doing what I've been doing.
It's gonna be all right. Wow. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right.
So far, John is all right, with plenty of company. Because of the ALS, his hands are unable to grab water bottles, and that forces him to use a tank and a long straw to hydrate. His story takes your mind in a million directions, but today, he has only one. This race has become John Blaze's way of spitting in the face of ALS. But the dream is in jeopardy. He's off the bike, and the cutoff clock is ticking. 17 miles to go. Missing that clock a year ago brought Sarah Reinertson to tears. Right now, it's a different feeling for her. For Blaze, it's cramps and an insidious disease that he tries to stretch out of his afflicted body.
I'm not angry yet. I think anger is gonna maybe possibly come down the road when I can't do the stuff I used to do. I've been so focused on being a voice for AOS that I haven't had time really to be angry. Every night you go to bed and it's a new movie. You light up like a pinball machine. Some nights your back's, on fire, twitching. Some nights it's in your legs. Some nights it's in your throat. It's everywhere. It's been 70 years and we've got nothing on AOS. The best they can tell you is that the average person lives between 2 to 5 years. After about 1 year of diagnosis, you just go downhill real quick. The doctor basically offered me the same thing they offered Lou Gehrig in 1939. They're not any further along.
John's fatalistic view is based on reality, which right now includes getting back on the bike, somehow getting through this, and realizing that today he can still do this. Because right now, today is what he has. It's what we all have.
Live more than your neighbors. Unleash yourself upon the world and go places. Go now. Giggle. No. Laugh. And bark at the moon like the wild dog that you are.
I'm alone, but you're near.
Do you believe in fate? Well, today, John's fate is to make it to the line.
Understand that this is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. Your life. Face your fears and live your dreams. Take it all in. Yes, every chance you get. Come close. And by all means, whatever you do, get it on film.
John Blaze, you are an Iron Man. And we do have it on film. You can learn a lot about life on the big island of Hawaii. What sustains it? And how today is everything until it's over. How it can be rejuvenated to reveal what's deep inside. And how boundaries are made to be broken. Those lessons come here in an event called the Iron Man. 1,800 people united by the challenge to prove, to inspire, to finish a once thought to be unreachable distance. Most of them are you and me.
I am a plumber, firefighter, teacher,
A lawyer.
a Marine,
FBI.
pharmacist,
Hair colorist.
a waitress.
Massage therapist.
I'm a nun.
Tomorrow, I go back to being a foreign currency trader.
One comes to be a champion, like he was a year ago. Another to reprove his strategy works. A woman tries to join the all-time greats. Then, there are those proven athletes who now so desperately want what winning here will say about them. But they are the minority. The everyman is a soldier fighting a new battle. A nun riding into the sunset. A firefighter embracing a blaze. and a total embrace of the word ability. What happens now changes lives every year. The lasting image of the 2005 Ironman was John Blaze. He finished the race with ALS. He said, "I'm going to finish under my own power, or they're going to have to roll me across the finish line." Well, he did it under his own power. 12 months later, his ALS has advanced. He's confined to a wheelchair, facing certain death.
My focus coming back here this year was to bring the war on ALS to Kona. You know, talk about a disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, that not many people know much about. They don't know how hideous the disease is. I mean, the fact that I did the race last year, here I am sitting now in a wheelchair like I predicted. Next year, I won't be sitting in front of any cameras, I'll be gone.
His name is Breen. He's from Chicago. When he watched last year's show, he didn't know John Blaze. What he did know is that he was inspired to try and do something an Ironman would do.
Well, first off, I made some calls to see that I could do this, that I could go from, 186, 185 pound, kind of out of shape, non-trained, regular guy, average man, to an Ironman in about 5-6 months. Then I went out trying to basically find John Blaze through the internet. When I found his email address, I just sent him a real simple email, and I just said, "Look, I'm going to Kona.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you guys. So I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to wrap this up quick. A lot of people might ask, if I was sitting in your seat, people might say, what does the Ironman have to do with me? Why would you show me that? And it's not to show off. It's not to say, here's this great accomplishment, because that's not how I feel about it. I think everyone in their life has, whether it's in sales or in their personal life, they have this greater desire to be significant, to make an impact. And I believe it is to make a bold impact. So, and by the way, really quick, so John ended up passing the next year. And the roll, when he rolled across the line, he did that because in an interview before his race, they said, "What happens if you can't make it to the finish line?" And he laughed and he said, "I'll make it there. I'll make it if you have to roll me across." And as he got towards the end, he rolled across the line because he thought to himself, people will remember this. And I'm not going to live, but I want to make an impact. I want to be significant. And that's what his life was about. And so when we talked about it, and they initially asked me, okay, so we're going to fly down to Hawaii and we'll see you at the finish line. And there's so much more to the story I wish I could tell, but they asked if I would roll across the line. And initially I was like, no, why would I roll? No, like that's the Ironman. Like I want to come across the finish line with my hands in the air so I can get that picture, so I can put it on my wall. And I can tell people, look, I did the Ironman. But as I went through the training, and the training was insane. It was 15 to 20 hours a week, 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, 4 to 7 hours a day on the weekends. And my body was breaking down. And you're starting to have to search for something deeper than a physical or scientific, some logical reason why you're continuing. And I would watch that video and I would think about my friendship with John, and I would think about the impact I was going to make. And so when I got a chance to roll across the line at the end to tell the world his story one last time and to do something of significance, one of the greatest moments of my life, one of the boldest moments of my life. And so a few things I want to end with, and I want to kind of tie this all up. First of all, so the role became unbelievably significant because we didn't know how much NBC had really filmed and how much they were going to use. But after that moment, the role went around the world in every single race, from the Boston Marathon to the New York Marathon, all the way up to the world champion of Ironman. Every year she would finish. Chrissy Wellington, you can look it up. She would get to the finish line. She's unbeaten. She would roll across the line. And the idea was that I'm rolling across the line to keep the story of those who are fighting ALS, to keep that story alive and to keep the hope alive for those battling against ALS. So I wanted to come back to, I told you I'd come back to what if. Remember at the beginning we said, when you're sitting at home and that phone rings and you're with your family and the phone rings and it's a salesperson, how do you feel? Are you angry? Are you annoyed? Are you frustrated? You pick up the phone and say, what do you want? Because if you do, if you even have a tinge of that, I promise you, there's no scientific approach, there's no process, there's no variety of ways I can teach you to overcome objections that's going to help you to reach the customer profoundly, that is going to overcome the fact that you hate what you do at the core. Because if you can't have empathy for others who are on the battlefield with you, then you have an issue with it in your own heart. And so I want to do something to try to change that for you. I told you I wanted to be a firefighter and a paramedic. And in my paramedic training, there was one thing that I remember more than anything, and it was this idea of approaching people who are injured. And so what I'll tell young salespeople is, imagine in your sales call or in your sales approach that what you're really doing is you're approaching a person. You're a paramedic, and there's a person, they've been in a car accident, and you're the paramedic, and you're approaching. And as you approach, you say, ma'am, sir, look, I'm going to put my hands on you. I'm just going to check. I'm going to make sure everything's okay. All right. And imagine if you were that paramedic and they said, no, go away. Would you turn around? Would you just say, okay, hey, listen, I just stopped by to check, no problem, I'll leave. Of course not. Of course you wouldn't. With the conviction and belief of a life-saving paramedic, of course you wouldn't. You know they're going to say no. You expect it. So instead, with full conviction and belief, you say, listen, I totally understand. Most times in this situation, that's what people say. Look, I'm just here to make sure that you're okay. Please allow me to be thorough. I'm a professional, and I'm going to help you and guide you through this. And so what if our salespeople had the opportunity to approach sales from that perspective? So that's why I wrote up here, so others may live. And the reason I write that up there is because there's this group of pararescuemen in the military, and they wear that patch on their shoulder to remind themselves that everything they do, the reason for everything, the reason they're willing to deal with any discomfort is so that others may live. So that's something I want to depart with you. And the last two things here are at mile 17 of that race. And then I think I want to kind of wrap in why the Ironman has anything to do with it. It was a profound experience. And at mile 17, so I now had swam 2.5 miles, I had biked 112 miles, and I had now run 17 miles. And so you start at 7 in the morning, and it is now 7 at night, and I've been moving for 12 hours. My body is rejecting water, all fluids, water, food, everything. Guess what? I'm vomiting again. We're at that place again. And I have 10 miles to go, and it's dark. There's no music. You see the Ironman on TV. It's this motivating, mind-blowing thing. I can promise you that out there, when you're doing it, just like sales, the big paychecks, all the fun stuff, when you're doing it, the mundane activity, this is what it feels like. It's dark. There's no streetlights on the Queen K Highway. You're exhausted to a degree you can't imagine. Your body is rejecting food. You're starting to question if you can make it from here to there, and maybe even deeper than that, why? And if in your heart, if the thing driving you forward is the process that someone told you, it's the scientific way to overcome the next objective or the piece of adversity, that's what you have, if that's the tool, then I don't know how good of a chance you will have to continue. But if instead you have a bolder reason within you, and I'm not trying to be cute or cliche, this is a passion for me. If you have a bolder reason that you're connected to, then there's nothing that will stop you. And in that moment, at mile 17 of this race, and they don't have it on video, but at mile 17, I'm vomiting again, and I can see 3 of everything. I am dizzy, and I have 10 miles to go, but I'll tell you what, I'm weeping as I'm running in the dark, because I know this is the greatest honor of my life. Nothing's going to stop me. There's a man waiting at the finish line who is a 34-year-old teacher, a special ed teacher who has meant a great deal to a great many people. And I have the honor of telling his story one final time if I can just keep going and if I can get across this finish line. So my point is, instead of looking at sales as a way to close a deal, to overcome objections, to go through a 7-step process of setting the customer up and neatly going through all their things, what my suggestion is to be free, to intuitively allow yourself to love what you do. Find out how it's going to impact your client's life. And I don't have enough time to even go into all of that, but if you are lucky enough and blessed enough to have some really profound experiences with the end user of your product or service, if you're lucky enough to have some profound experiences within even your own organization or how your job affects your family, then you can get up every day, and instead of having a perfect process driving you, you can ask yourself every day and in every moment, not how do I overcome this objection, but how can I be bolder? And you can not only sell boldly, but you can live boldly. So that's all I have. It was an honor to be here, guys. I thank you very much. I'm Breen with the Boulder Project. Thank you.